Welcome to Reinventions in Between, your go-to podcast for real stories of reinvention that happen between life stages, career changes, and living abroad. I'm Sara Kojola, life coach, intercultural trainer, and reinventions facilitator, helping people on their quest to what's next. I have reinvented myself a few times, and in the past 16 years, I have collected fascinating stories of change. In each episode, my guests will talk about why and how they took the leap and seized the opportunity to change their life. Let's begin.
A friend of mine that I already knew that lived in Hong Kong sort of pulled me aside and said, stop whinging, Nicole, think about everything that you've done throughout your entire career. You're not just a newsreader who can read the auto cue. And that really made me stop and think. I remember to this day, because I had at the time 20 years of experience, and that was, included writing and producing programs, speaking, voiceover.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy today to be joined by Nicole Webb. She's a journalist, author, and publicist. Nicole spent 20 years in Australian television as a reporter, producer, and presenter. In 2010, she moved to Hong Kong with her hotelier husband, and bump, so means a baby. With the trio lived for 4 years before moving to, I let you pronounce,
Xi'an in China, middle of China.
Northwest China.
Yes.
Nicole continued her work in all things media across the Asia Pacific. She's now based in Singapore, and I'm in Melbourne, and I'm very happy to have her as a guest. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to see you on the screen at last.
Yes. We've been in touch for quite some time in the past. I think it was before the pandemic, through the work that we do as volunteer with the FIGT, the Families in Global Transition Not-for-Profit Organization. So we both are interested in everything that relates to expat wives and families that live abroad and across different cultures.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think we've got a lot in common. And I've seen your face for a long time and love following you and seeing what you're up to.
Thank you. I was fascinated about your story and your invention. That's why I started this podcast. And so I'd like to start straight away asking you how this reinvention came along for you.
Oh, geez. How long have you got? Those people that know me already know that I was a newsreader for Sky News for a decade, as well as a journalist and a reporter and all those sorts of things in Sydney, Australia. And that's where I met my husband, who is in hotels, and a job came up for him to go to Hong Kong, as you said, in 2010. And it just seemed like the right time for someone who was always, I'm a career girl and I've worked hard to achieve what I had achieved. It was a big decision back then, but I felt like it was the right one at the time. And I knew that if I stayed doing what I was doing, I would probably still be doing it. And I needed something, to shake things up a bit, I guess. And it just so happened, as you said, we found out we were pregnant the same time we moved to Hong Kong. So arriving in a foreign country, which was very foreign to us then, having never, lived overseas in Asia. Looking back in hindsight, it's very westernized. But to us then, it was a whole new ball game. And I didn't have a job. Suddenly, the career girl was without a job. We didn't have a home initially, no car, and I was having a baby. So it was probably a whole big transition into who am I and what am I going to do now?
Oh, definitely. How did you live that special phase of having a pregnancy abroad and not having family around? Was it tough, I suppose?
It was tough, but it's probably, when you're in it, you don't know any better, do you? I don't know what it would be like to have that help all the time. But it was definitely hard, and I definitely missed my family. They came and went, and they came for long periods of time. But I ended up joining a mum's pregnancy group. So all of the mums, they were all expats, and they were all due around the same time. So that really helped, I guess, having people around me that were going through the same sort of thing. A lot of them were new to Hong Kong. So they sort of became my tribe in a way and helped me through that whole early motherhood. And, you know, as we know, our partners, whether it's the husband or the wife working, are usually very busy in their new jobs and they've got a lot to prove. So James was, even though we lived next door to the hotel, he was at work for very long hours. So it was really a big adjustment.
It's a very tough life, hotelier or people or work in hospitality through. And we had a similar path when I was on my own in Thailand when I had my first child and had no family around. And same, the expat community was really that extended family that was trying to help out in all sorts of weird and difficult situation. I still remember calling my sister-in-law when I had challenges in breastfeeding, but she wasn't there, and I was tricky.
It's tough. And you know, you do, thankfully, the expat community, you really do rally around each other, don't you? Because you have to.
Definitely. It's a great support, and I really feel grateful for having embraced and reached out for that community, which it wasn't easy at first. And life abroad has also helped me to really grow out what it's called the comfort zone, but really reach out for her because we were not used to.
No. It's so hard, isn't it? I remember the last thing I wanted to do was join a mother's group. You know, it just wasn't, especially in a country I wasn't familiar with. And it was just so out of my comfort zone. But I knew that I had to do it and force myself to, meet other people in the same boat. And I can still remember that day so clearly, walking or waddling along to this restaurant. I couldn't find it. It was so hot in Hong Kong, sweat dripping down me. Trying to find the name of this restaurant up these steep hills in the middle of central Hong Kong. And then I walked in, and you've got to face all of these new, all these faces are looking at you expectantly like, hi, and you introduce yourself and hope that you meet someone, at least one person that you can really connect with.
Absolutely. And that was the very first step to networking for interesting purposes. So we learned how to do this. Well, you had a past incorporating in news industry, so it was probably different. But being in a new situation and having to force ourselves to do something new and learn how to navigate those challenges is great, rewarding, and not only it allows us to get more confidence and be able to reach other resorts, other places.
Absolutely. Yeah, it just allowed, I guess it teaches you so much, doesn't it? And looking back, I'm so grateful as well that we did what we did, because it just opens up so many new opportunities that you probably would never have, and so many new friends.
Definitely. And connection that also help us to in our professional life as well. I think the expat tribe, expat community has become our place to be, to live, to interact with, and we rely, and we also try to help them. So what we are doing now is really trying to give back in a way.
Yes.
But also we know what everyone is going through when they live abroad. So we want to use our own experiences to help others. So what happened after the baby, and how, what's the second step of your invention?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I really was so out of my normal comfort zone, as we said, and I didn't want to go into those TV stations in Hong Kong because I knew that at best it would probably be shift work. And with a new baby, I thought I just really want to have some time with her and have something that's flexible. And also, I think, as we all know, as new mums, without being in another country, we often lose our confidence and we lose our identity when you're changing nappies and singing nursery rhymes all day. So I did have probably a slump in my confidence, and who was I without having that auto cue and the bright lights in the camera? You know, what could I do? And I really had a blockage for a while. I knew that I had to do something, and I knew that would give me a purpose, and I had to have my own thing, as well as having a baby and James and all of that. Eventually, and I've told this story before, a friend of mine that I already knew that lived in Hong Kong sort of pulled me aside and said, "Stop whinging, Nicole. You know, think about everything that you've done throughout your entire career. You're not just a newsreader who can read the auto cue." And that really made me stop and think. I remember to this day, because I had at the time 20 years of experience, and that was, you know, included writing and producing programs, speaking, voiceovers, creating lots of different things. So it made me realize that I wasn't just, you know, on camera, or that wasn't just all there was to me. So with that in mind, I started doing a little bit of writing for other websites, mostly at the time pregnancy, motherhood websites, because that was what I was going through. So it was something that I knew and something that I could write. And I had never really written like that before. As a journalist, you just write very brief scripts: who, what, when, where, how, tell the facts. So I was allowed to be a bit creative for the first time, I guess. And I've always been quite creative in my early years as a child. So I guess it took me back to that, and I realized that I really enjoyed it. And it gave me a little bit of a boost, because I was seeing things published online with my name. I thought, well, okay, that's something. It's keeping me a little bit busy when I had free time, which wasn't much with a new baby. And then through word of mouth, a few other things happened. I ended up doing a bit of MC, Master of Ceremonies, hosting an event, which was very scary. As much as people say, well, you used to read the news, how scary could that be? But it was, you know, when you're reading the news, you don't see all the people. So for an introverted extrovert, it was quite a daunting task. But I remember going to do that when Ava was 9 weeks old. So here I go off, you know, to do this. I remember having to find dresses 3 sizes bigger because I hadn't lost the baby weight, breastfeeding, all of those fun things. And I hosted this event, and I did that for 10 years. So it was something, you know, again, I was kind of dreading it and wishing, you know, I didn't put my hand up to do it. But after I did it, I was like, yes, okay. Tick, I've done something.
Wow, that's so amazing. I keep telling, both in the podcast episodes and also in my Reinvention webinars, what I try to encourage people is really to look at all the skills and competencies that we had before, but that we can repurpose and really use in different contexts, and how much creativity allows us to do that. And sometimes I really feel that it's a blessing that we were given those challenges to try to express ourselves in a different way.
I think so.
And skills, I would never have. They keep growing.
They do.
We really keep to adding them in our CV, in our resume, and it's impressive.
I think that's the word as well, repurpose. I think that's what it's all about. It's taking what you already have and working out what you can do with all those skills, isn't it? And sometimes you need to think outside of the box. Sometimes it takes someone else to tell you. It can take time to work it out. But that's definitely the key. It's repurposing what you've already done throughout your, career history. So, I mean, and it's also I think it also gives you the freedom in another country to do things that you might not have had the confidence to do in your home country. Yes. Because I know as a journalist, I would never have submitted an article to an online website. A, I was too busy in my day job, and B, I just wouldn't have had the confidence, and that would have been stepping outside my box, literally. So you just don't do that. So it allowed me to do that. It allowed me to be an MC at events. And then I started my own blog because I loved the writing so much. And I realized that I had a lot of great, interesting, funny stories to tell being in a new country. So that was another thing that kind of repurposed what I'd always done.
Absolutely. And I bet you felt rewarded as well with all the readings and people that were contributing to or accessing your blog, because it's always so enriching to read about other people's experiences and relate in those specific moments in life.
Yeah, I think so. I just, it was fun to write it, but it was also, I hope, fun and a bit educating for other people as well, to learn about life in a country they may not know about, or maybe a country they can relate to, or a lifestyle they can relate to, or maybe they don't. But yeah, so I did that for quite a long time. And then, of course, we moved to the middle of China, and working there was even harder. But by that stage, I had worked out these other things that I could do, and I had my laptop, and that's all I needed. So I kept blogging. I did a bit of MC work. I did some media training, which is training other people to talk in front of the camera. And that was enough to satisfy me during that time. And then I decided that I would write a book. So that kept me very busy in China, because I knew it was going to be about China, and that was such a different life and different culture, and, difficult. So there I started interviewing, using my interviewing skills that I had as a journalist, and interviewing a lot of the locals. So, we were there for 2.5 years, and that really kept me busy and engaged, and also learning about the place I was in and the people.
That's amazing, because so many people, when they move, it takes them 2 years to get settled in it. And you were able not just to settle, but also to do these amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, I didn't start until I was about a year in, because as you say, it does take time to adjust. And I remember those early days of being in China, just thinking, I don't know if I can do this. And it was such a big adjustment culturally. But as you say, eventually, as we all know as expats, time goes by, and you do start to think of it as home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to build up on what you said before a little bit, the abroad perspective. Totally agree with that. Who knows if I ever would have started not one but 2 podcasts if I were still in Italy. But yes, and I love how you brought your perspective as a blonde, a Westerner in China. So that's the title of your book, right?
China Blonde. Yeah.
So you had that really culture difference that you work on, and you crafted a project and a product for yourself, and how much learning, how much you were working at this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess, at the time it was before COVID, and we didn't know a lot about China. We hear maybe occasionally on the news about something's happened in a city in China, but there are, back then there were 650 cities, and there's probably 700 now, who knows? So I felt like it was also my duty to kind of educate and tell people about, this place that is so foreign to so many of us, and also to look at we hear a lot of negatives all the time, so it was good to look at those positive aspects. And look at the people themselves and who they are and how they feel. So it was really, again, I guess, repurposing what I had always done, but in a different way, and allowing me to still have a purpose.
Love it. I love it. And integrate with a new element for a new project. And also writing the book led you to have a new role, a new profession. Because after writing a book, you have to promote the book, right? And it's just not, I suppose, in the old ways, there was a publisher doing all the work, but nowadays we need more and more to be our own promoter of our.
Exactly. And that was a career. I mean, this is, it's been a whole new full-time business that I've started, which I really didn't see coming. And I wasn't looking for it at all. But, writing a book is not very financially great. And I did my own media, as you said, basically because I knew a lot of the media contacts in Australia already from having worked in the media. And it was something I liked doing. And I remember somebody suggested that I should do it for other authors. And I immediately said, yeah, no, I don't think I would enjoy doing that for other people as much as I like doing it for my own book. But then I think maybe 6 months after the book came out, I was approached by another organization, Peter Singer, the famous philosopher, to help promote his book. And so I took that on, and lo and behold, I really enjoyed it. And it was almost like I had come full circle. And it's like a whole, I guess it's a combination of all those skills that I've had over the last 30 years, from writing, their media releases, to pitching to all the media that I know. So still engaged with the media, reading books, which I love, dealing with clients. It's just everything, I guess. So now that has become, I think in the last 2 years, I've probably done around 20 authors. So that came out of left field, but I love it. It's the perfect job for me, and I can do it anywhere. So as you say, now that we've moved to Singapore, that didn't put a big dent in that. I can still do that here because I still know the Australian landscape really well. So yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen.
Amazing. The message that I really get from many of you amazing speakers that come to the show is that changing career, retraining, reinventing is really generative. It's never you never fail, or if a product or a project doesn't work well, it's just a step in a big journey, but it's generating so many different things, and it's amazing.
It's so true. I think it just, I didn't all those 10 years that I was writing and doing the book and all of that, I really wasn't making much money, but it was still giving me a purpose. So I think that's really important, even for people in other countries that are just, volunteering or doing other things, learning the language, all of that. It's giving you something that you're doing for yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then you can bring the new job or new role to different levels, because you can also pitch to maybe some other company or do some
exactly. You start meeting new people, new connections.
I wonder how many interesting people you will meet there in Singapore.
Well, you just don't know, do you? I could end up doing this in Singapore as well once I get to know
but the people coming from everywhere. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a big expat community there as well. One of
huge. Compared to Xi'an, where there was about 1,000 expats, I think there's probably 100. I don't know. There's so many here. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. Probably half of the population. But great. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you if you have a few tips for the listener about embarking their own journey of reinvention, or what would be your suggestion?
I think, just as we've talked before, I think just recapping that it really is about doing something, even if it's not really your cup of tea in the beginning, putting yourself out there. We all have to put ourselves out of our comfort zone, eventually, once you feel a bit settled and ready to do that. And then, you know, looking at what you've done in the past and how you can use those skills, and not forgetting that you do have so many tools, you know, in your tool belt to use. We just really often forget who we are. And I think that goes for women who hit, you know, 40, 50. It happens to them alone without moving countries. It happens to mothers who have children and suddenly are back in the workforce, and you maybe have all that and you're in a foreign country. But it is about just taking that time to really think about, or even asking other people, you know, what do you see are my skills, from looking from the outside in, because maybe you don't see them. You're a bit blind to what you know you can do because it's just been automatic over the years.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, and just realizing that it does take time. It never happens overnight, and can all be a bit impatient and want things to happen, and it can be frustrating and lonely and all of those things. But I think the more you are an expat in different countries, the more you do realize that it does happen. You just have to ride out those early months and get through them. And eventually you'll find your tribe and your network of people, and hopefully something that you can do as well that's it's purposeful for you and meaningful.
Great tips. Thank you so much. And I love that you mentioned people around the age of 40 and 50, which is crucial, especially for women. And with a lens of longevity, this is becoming more and more important to convey the message that we have other opportunities, and we just need to choose and invest in ourselves and be intentional what we want to do, because there's tons of things that we can really start, as you said, starting volunteering, but then you can just embrace a cause and do something for something you truly believe. And that's the very first work that everyone who engages with a coach does. It's really work at the values, own values. So what's important for us, and knowing that values change over the years. So we had priorities when we were in our 20s, or if we become parents and having children and a family, other responsibility and other priorities. So we just need to be aware of things change in any way.
So true. And you're not who you were at 20, are you, when you're 50? So, you know, and you may want to completely change up your career. You know, you don't necessarily have to even repurpose the skills you already have. If there's another career and you've got the time available and of course the money, why not use that time? And a lot of us do have that time when we're in another country, more spare time than we probably have had before if our kids are starting to grow up or they're a bit more, you know, independent. So I think it, like you say, it's good to maybe talk to someone as well to work out what your values are now and have a really good think about that. And courses, I remember going back to Sydney after China and Hong Kong after 6 years away, and did all the courses that I could about writing and publishing and all of that, because I had that opportunity and the courses were available.
Well, now is a new trend, the hashtag lifelong learner.
That's a good hashtag.
Absolutely. So many people are getting second degrees, second masters. We don't have to be afraid of retraining. And actually, again, the fourth industrial revolution is really forcing us to upskill constantly. And that's not just a trend, but a necessity.
It's never too late.
Never too late, absolutely. I wanted to conclude this beautiful interview. Thank you so much. Asking you a provocative question. Do you remember the movie Sliding Doors?
I do. I love, with Gwyneth Paltrow. Yes.
Thinking just about yourself. If you, what would it be? And it's kind of reflective on the past. If you hadn't choose the path,
if I didn't choose what would I be doing?
Well, yeah. So it's a bit of assessment of what has been done so far.
I don't know. I often think about this, and I was actually talking to my mum when I was last in Australia, because we came from New Zealand when I was a teenager, to live in Australia. So I always wondered, imagine if we'd just stayed in New Zealand, what would I have done? Would I have become a newsreader? It's a much smaller place. Would that have been possible? What if I didn't meet James? I probably wouldn't have moved overseas, because I remember thinking when I did meet him and I was in my mid-30s that time had come and gone and I'd missed the boat to live overseas. And I said that to him. So you just don't know, do you? It could have been a whole different life.
Oh, absolutely. But you're not regretting. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It was really inspiring to hear all the learning and the joys and the challenges of your experience, but you're not regretting. And I'm seeing from your website that you have so many places where you appear both on screen and on podcasts. So thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I will leave all the details where people can find you in the show notes.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and great to chat with you.
Thank you, Nicole. Bye. Thank you for listening. Now I want to hear from you. What's your number one takeaway from my conversation with my guest? We would love to hear your comments. You'll find all the links in the show notes. If you're curious about reinvention, go download my free guide, Your First Steps. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you'll never miss the opportunity to spark curiosity and get inspired on how you can navigate change in your own life.